Today's lesson is going to be over the term absolute value. And before we talk about what absolute value means, let's talk about the math symbol for absolute value. Just like instead of writing the word equals for everything, we write a symbol that looks like this. Just like instead of writing out the word subtraction, we have a symbol that looks like this. Instead of writing out the words absolute value, we have a math symbol that represents that as well. And this is what that symbol looks like. So you have a number, and then you have two straight lines on either side. So if I were going to put this expression into words, it would say the absolute value of 5. Now, I haven't explained to you what absolute value means yet. This is just what the symbol looks like, so that in a few minutes when we talk about what it looks like, you'll know kind of what you're looking for. Here's another example. Now this one, instead of the absolute value of positive 5, like we had here, this one means the absolute value of, you guessed it, negative 5, because it's actually a negative 5 that's in between those straight lines. Now don't get this symbol confused because it looks an awful lot like parentheses right here. See the difference? This one is absolute value because the two lines on either side of it are straight. In parentheses, the lines that surround the number are curvy. So even though absolute value looks a lot like parentheses, don't get it confused because it doesn't mean the same thing. Absolute value is straight lines where parentheses have a curve to them. Now let's talk about what it actually means. What it means is that if you were going to go for a walk on the number line, what is the distance between that number and 0? So for example, the absolute value of 7 means if you've got a little person right here and he's going for a walk on the number line, he always starts at 0. We know that 0 is always where we start. How many steps would he have to take on the number line, assuming that a step is a whole number, to get over to a positive 7? Of course, he would have to hop 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7 places. So the absolute value of positive 7 is simply 7 because it takes him 7 steps to get from 0 over to 7 on the number line. So the actual meaning of absolute value is that it's actually a distance. Now think about that for a second. Distance. If you walk anywhere, can you walk negative feet? Can you walk negative inches? Even some people might say, well, sure you can. You can walk backwards. Well, but even if you're walking backwards, are you actually walking a negative distance? Nope, you're not. So, some people, for example, think that if you are finding the absolute value of a negative 3, so you think, how many steps do I need to travel on the number line from 0 to get to negative 3? Some people would say it's 1, 2, 3, and since I went backwards, the absolute value is negative 3. Okay, that is absolutely not correct. Just like when you're walking backwards, that's not really walking in a negative direction. Okay, technically some people might say it's a negative direction, but you can't walk negative feet, you can't walk negative inches, you can't walk negative miles. So to go from 0 to negative 3, you're still taking 1, 2, 3 positive steps. So the absolute value of negative 3 is still going to be a 3. It is not going to be a negative 3. Therefore, absolute value, this is a key idea, oops, sorry, my handwriting there got a little goofy, is always positive. Always, always, always. Because what absolute value really means is a type of distance. And even if you're walking backwards, you're not traveling in a negative distance. So that means that absolute value is always positive. Let's look at another example here. So, I didn't mean to do the same one, but hopefully it'll still make sense. So in example A, the absolute value of negative 3. So just like we did a second ago, to travel, remember it's the distance that it takes to go from 0 to negative 3 on the number line. So we had to hop over 1 place, 2 places, 3 places on the number line. So the absolute value of negative 3 is going to be positive 3 because you can't go negative steps. So it's 1, 2, 3. By the same idea, the absolute value of positive 4, we hopped over 1, 2, 3, 4 places to get over to the positive 4. So the absolute value of positive 4 is 4. Let's look at one more. So you think for a second in your head what you think the answer might be. So the absolute value of negative 20, the absolute value of positive 12. Think for a second in your head what you think they might be. Maybe write them down on your paper now. Jot down what you think the answer would probably be. I'm going to go ahead and make a little number line here to illustrate. So if I go for this one, if I go on the number line from 0 all the way over to negative 20, I would have to hop over 20 steps to get from 0 to negative 20. Just like to get here from 0 to negative 3, I had to go 1, 2, 3 places. To hop over from 0 to negative 20, I would have to hop over 20 places. So the absolute value of negative 20 is a positive 20. To do the absolute value of a positive 12, I would hop from 0 over to the positive 12. So just like going from 0 to positive 4 took 1, 2, 3, 4 steps, that means that it's going to take me to go from 0 to 12, it's going to take me positive 12 steps. So therefore the absolute value of 12 is 12. There's a little expression that you can use to help yourself remember how to do absolute value. Remember that absolute value technically means a distance on the number line. And you can think of it in terms of this expression that we like to use in class sometimes that says, can you go a negative distance? And your answer is absolutely not. So that is your cue to help you remember that absolute value is always, always, always positive. It's never negative because you can't go a negative distance. I'm going to give you 2 more examples for you to try on your own. So the absolute value of 17 and the absolute value of negative 12. Pause the video for just a moment. Try it on your own. Restart the video whenever you're ready to check your answer. And in the meantime, I'm going to go ahead and work it for you. So if I were going to travel on a number line, because remember, that is what absolute value means. If I were going to travel from 0 over here to positive 17, it would take me 17 steps to get there. There's no such thing as negative steps. So the absolute value of positive 17 is simply 17 to represent the 17 steps that it would take me. The absolute value of negative 12 means if I were traveling from 0 over to negative 12, it would take me 12 steps to travel from 0 to negative 12. So the absolute value of negative 12 is simply going to be a 12. Even though technically I'm going backwards, I'm still going a positive number of steps. So again, you can't go a negative distance. Let's try one more. So you guys try the absolute value of positive 17, absolute value of negative 35. Take just a second, write them down, pause the video, restart when you're ready to check your answer. I'm going to go ahead and work it though. So the absolute value of positive 17 is simply going to be a positive 17 because it would take 17 steps to go from 0 to 17. The absolute value of negative 35 is simply going to be a positive 35 because you can't go negative steps. You would still have to go 35 steps. It would just be in the negative direction.